This week in Pure Reinvention.
People who don't understand that Detroit is coming back need to just spend a little time downtown. You're going to be so impressed, mostly because of the people who are there. They're making it work.
Episode 76, Dave Lorenz, Vice President of Travel Michigan.
Engage, disrupt, adapt, repeat. You're listening to Pure Reinvention, the podcast for curious people.
Welcome to this episode of Pure Reinvention, where we create space for the unexpected by inspiring a reinvention lifestyle. Misty, Pure Michigan, and branding. How important is it?
It knocks my socks off every time I look at how well the Pure Michigan campaign is done and the team behind it.
I think it's absolutely amazing, not only what it's done, which we should probably talk a little bit about, but understanding the investment that was made and how intentional it was that they create a new brand for a state that was ready.
Yeah, even when I travel outside of Michigan and people find out where I'm from, they say, oh, those commercials, we see them all the time. We know those Pure Michigan commercials, and they really love them.
Apparently, Pure Michigan has wrapped a number of buses in Chicago. And Dave Lorenz says his friends in Chicago, every time they step into the city, are mad at him because all they see are these buses wrapped in Pure Michigan.
That's funny. Well, that brings us to this week's podcast guest, and that's Dave Lorenz, to give us a little bit of an inside scoop on that brand reinvention and how he has helped navigate Michigan, not only as a brand from Travel Michigan's perspective, but also as a leader and as a thought leader for the state.
Misty, I don't know as though anyone can really go through any sort of reinvention without giving thought to what the new brand is going to look like and what the new brand is going to represent, and then how intentional you have to be at consistently over time letting people know what that is. And Pure Michigan has been a wonderful example of changing and shaping a perception.
Yeah, and Dave shares some really great tips in this interview just about how, not just for Pure Michigan, but how that reinventive thought process really works behind the scenes.
Misty, because I know this is your space, when we come back on the other end, will you walk us through those things?
Sounds good.
This week's episode is sponsored by Willpower Consulting. Whether it be pursuing new avenues in content delivery like podcasts or developing a sustainable content building strategy, Willpower Consulting is with you every step of the way. Get a dose of willpower at WilliamRCarlson.com or at WilliamRCarlson on Twitter.
Dave, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's great to be here, Mike. Thank you.
So, Dave, I want to take you back and talk about the 5 steps in the reinvention process. But of the 5 steps in the reinvention process, which step do you most closely align yourself with?
I would probably say connect, only because we really are trying to connect the world to the message that we want them to see, the real story here. Hey, we're not perfect. We know that. We're not even trying to come off as though we're perfect. We're just trying to tell everybody this is what's really happening here. Come over here and see us for all that we are, the good and the bad. And you're going to really enjoy it because the experience we can offer is enriching. It will change your lives in so many ways if you just give an opportunity to yourselves to be connected with what we have here. And as we try to do that to the outer world, internally in the state, with the travel industry primarily, we're trying to bring them all together so that we're all, pulling on the oars at the same cadence.
What is your superpower?
I would probably say collaboration. I used to be with the Meyer Corporation. I was a media buyer long ago, and I remember at one point one of my bosses said, we should be able to do more with our co-op dollars, these dollars that we get from other manufacturing companies to try to help sell their brands at our store. And we came up with this brand new approach, collaborative marketing for retail. Nobody had ever done it before, where we blended their brands with our brand. And we encourage people to come into our store to buy their products. And what we found is when we did this, not only did we sell more of their products, we sold more of the entire category. We even sold more of that category at our neighboring retailers if we did these things right. So, we knew that we could do the same thing for this little place called Michigan if we just tried. If we brought people together, and we really identified where the unique things and experiences were. And then we encourage people not to worry about borders and boundaries and, taking chances of maybe cross promoting with another community. Well, that just wasn't done. So now we're really working together. And I'm proud of the travel industry, how well they have collaborated, not only with us, but with each other. It's gone well.
What you're really talking about is a rising tide lifts all boats.
That's exactly right. And that's actually this whole rising tide thing is the essence of why the Michigan Economic Development Corporation was put together, our parent organization. When we work together to encourage companies to come here, to employ people, to connect with each other. We even have this Pure Michigan Talent Connect program going, which is not tourism, at least not entirely. It's really encouraging companies to find partners within the state that they can do business with. It's all connected. All of this really is connected.
And what is the one thing that keeps you up at night, Dave?
I think I try not to allow anything to keep me up at night. And frankly, I and my team work so hard that I don't have the energy to stay up at night very often. But I'd probably say still this lack of acceptance by some to believe, to believe in the ability of our people and our communities to make it work. There will always be people who are negative about things, and I think I worry more about them than about their attitude. Because, how do they get through the day with that attitude? And so I'm worried about that and how I can impact them.
Dave, one of the great projects that you're involved with is this thing called Pure Michigan. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I like to say I was with Pure Michigan since before Pure Michigan was born, 10 years ago. Can't believe that brand has been around that long. Pure Michigan was born to really try to connect the world with what we know as this beautiful place that offers abundant natural beauty, unique experiences, authentic experiences, and friendly people. And our goal was just to lure people into the state to have a good time and spend some money and help to create and retain jobs and maybe bring some tax dollars in. But I think that the thing that I'm most proud of and what our team is most proud of is that the campaign has really helped to engender a sense of pride by Michigan residents, not just, encouraging people to travel here, but it's reminded us that this state is worth fighting for.
My understanding is Pure Michigan was brought in to kind of give a boost back to our image of our state. But I want you to speak to the importance of image and branding in the reinvention process.
Absolutely. It doesn't matter what type of product you're talking about. If people have an improper image of you, or sometimes if they have a proper image of you and you're not prepared to sell that product, well then, forget about that. You can't fix it with branding. You just won't be able to. But when you have a good product, I don't care if it's a candy bar or a state, you need to somehow identify that emotional connectedness between that product and the consumer. What is that connection? And how can you emotionally encourage the consumer to want to take part in it, to be part of this, to support it? And that's really what branding is all about. When I was in retail, for instance, we knew that it's really not about price of a product. It really isn't. That's part of the component. What the consumer is looking for is a good value. So that includes a little bit of price, a lot of quality, and they want to enrich their families in one way or the other. That's what we all really want. So again, it doesn't matter if you're buying cereal or if you're trying to plan a travel experience. You're looking for great quality at a reasonable price, something that will provide an opportunity for your family to become enriched and connect with each other.
Dave, this new image, this branding campaign needed a funding source.
Right.
Yeah. So because we have to, as leaders, if we're going to initiate something like this, it has to have a funding source. Can you speak to how important it is as a leader to be to support and get behind or to create the funding source necessary to rebrand in establishing a reinvented mindset?
Yeah, happy to. Well, the challenge with us is we're a quasi-governmental organization, which means, of course, there are a lot of people who simply don't trust us right now, just from that explanation, because the word government is used. People just don't trust government right now. So our challenge has been and continues to be, always will be, to make sure that we're communicating with the policymakers appropriately, that we're providing them with all the data, all the information they need to to prove that if we do this, we will get that we will provide a great return on that investment. Oh. So on the policy end, that's important. We do that. We have a lot of research to help us along those lines. And that research actually helps to redirect us constantly. People think, well, you just come up with research with better numbers. No, not actually. A lot of our research shows that we're doing things wrong. And what we do is we then adjust, having seen that research, to do it better in the future. So that's the policy end. On I think the most important end, the stakeholders, the real stakeholders, taxpayers, people who live here, I think that part of our message to them is look at these ads, look at our campaign, check it out. How does it make you feel? Does it help you to realize that this state is something special? It truly is different. It really is. Do you feel that? And if you do, then we're doing our job and we're providing you a value. If you don't, then let's keep on talking and figure a way to connect in that way.
Now, you are the individual as the leader who then is kind of needing to monitor the return on investment and monitor the benefits that are being derived. That takes a tremendous amount of energy. How do you continually, as the leader, look at all of those things and then be the number one cheerleader? Yeah.
So I tell you, I have a really great staff. We have a small 9-member staff in our office. And so luckily I have this very supportive staff, and we do really work at supporting each other. It wasn't always that way, I can tell you that. But we're working together like never before. But I think that part of it is also that I need to take care of myself and keep myself motivated. And I do that trying to get out into the industry as much as I can, to be engaged with the industry. And I tell you, that is a motivator. When you're out there and you see and hear their comments about what our work is doing to positively impact their communities, that motivates me.
Now, let me make sure I understand this correctly. One of the bigger motivators that you get that feeds you is being out in the environment and hearing people talk about the work that is happening.
Yeah. And, in our industry, we're not shy of saying what we think. And that's fantastic. And we encourage that. I also encourage that within our own staff. We don't always agree. We deal from consensus with almost everything we do. I'm just not the person who says we're going to do this, period. Very often. Sometimes that is the case. Earlier this year, actually last year, I said, you know what? We're ready to really go out there and really promote what's happening in Detroit today after decades of challenge there. We're ready to celebrate this reinvention of Detroit. We're going to do that. I don't want to hear any comments. Just don't. Luckily, most of the staff was fully engaged in it and understood that the time was right. So we move forward on that. But most of the things we do are fully through collaboration with the industry and with staff. And it's the only way I think you can do it well.
So let's you brought up Detroit. Let's talk about Detroit. Pure Michigan has, in fact, specifically started to focus on the reinvention of Detroit. Pure Reinvention has been focused on the learning laboratory that Detroit provides. It's a wonderful place to study reinvention. Tell us what attracted Pure Michigan to focus on Detroit.
Well, I've been watching Detroit forever. I'm in Detroit every week, and it's our most important city for travel. People may be surprised that Detroit is the number one visited place in the state. It's not Traverse City or Mackinac or these other beautiful places. It's Detroit. But we really, in the past, weren't at a point where we felt that we could really go out with a significant financial and otherwise effort to say, hey, come over to Detroit, be part of this what's happening today, because it just wasn't ready. You look at what people from as far back as Henry Ford, but most recently the Penske's and Carmonases and the Illiches and now the Gilberts and those entrepreneurs, they sensed that now's the time to really start building and really investing and really, doing all that. That would have been maybe good enough to do this, but in reality, at a conference in August, when we brought these travel meeting planners from all over the country to Detroit, I think it was a Sunday morning. We had a little fundraiser run along the riverfront, and we took off all together, a couple hundred people maybe, And I'm never used to being in front. I'm always just kind of in the pack. And I was doing my little tour guide thing. This is what you're seeing here. This is what you're seeing there. Saw all these young people. And at a certain point, we turned around beyond the park at the lighthouse, and we turned back to go toward the Renaissance Center. The sun was coming up. It was shining on the Renaissance Center. And you saw these people seeing Detroit for the first time with different eyes.
Isn't that phenomenal? The role of the river, right? The reinvention of the river, the reinvention of how people are attracted to the water, and the ability to see things in a different way. It's been amazing how much the river has played into the reinvention of Detroit.
Not only that, but you see that development. And if you could have just seen their faces, it was like a brand new understanding of what's happening there. And it just hit me. I thought, you know what? This is what will happen if we can get people to come to Detroit. Let them see what's really happening today. We can create change.
When you are present and actually engaged in the experience, right, then that's what leads to the 1-year wait in living space in downtown Detroit. That's what leads to major employers relocating into that area where the employees want to live. Right, it creates this whole new momentum.
And the interesting thing is, as impressive as it is to see all this building and everything, if you really study Detroit and watch Detroit as I am, and you see these people who live there, who are, especially these young people who are now moving there, only major city in America where people are moving to. And you see these people who are really from the ground level creating different things, entrepreneurial spirit, this can-do attitude. It's inspiring. You see people who just gather together and they have a certain passion about a certain thing, like biking, for instance. Before you know it, you have the slow roll on Monday nights at 7:30 and thousands of people coming together to go biking together in a city. You see people coming together with these food co-ops and these farms being built and coming together to provide fresh food for a local community. People who don't understand that Detroit is coming back need to just spend a little time downtown. You're going to be so impressed, mostly because of the people who are there. They're making it work.
Dave, this has been a tremendous conversation from an executive who's passionate about their work, passionate about the vision of the state, and the state is fortunate to have somebody with your capabilities in your position. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Looking at Detroit with new eyes, Dave was able to really see people turn around and see Detroit with a fresh take. How cool would it be?
I'm really excited that Pure Michigan has invested in the Detroit landscape. We at Pure Reinvention have recognized how important Detroit is as a learning lab. And I'm really, really excited that Pure Michigan has also seen the incredible importance of the city to the success of the state. Not the only city, but certainly a key city.
Yeah, I was surprised to learn that Detroit's the most visited city in Michigan.
Even more important than that, Misty, is I want you to walk us through how important it is for any new entity going through reinvention to really think about what their new brand is going to be and how intentional you have to be, like the Pure Michigan campaign, to invest for the long term and really, really, really create a new brand.
Well, I think Dave Lorenz hit it right on the head early on in this conversation where he said it was an emotional connection. And, connection is one of our 5 fundamentals. So that helps that I can draw that in. But truly a brand is so much more than a color or a look. It's the emotional connection that your consumer has with why. And there's nothing more important than on the front end of creating any sort of brand, making sure you're connecting with that why and that emotional touch of your consumer.
Misty, we've been learning a lot about creating a community. Are you saying that Pure Michigan has almost created a new community of connectivity for as a brand?
Oh, absolutely. Spend any time on their Twitter account or through their Facebook messaging, and just see the people. It's a life of its own. The conversation and the community that's thriving and that's the best visual I can give you. But like I mentioned in the beginning, you leave our state and you hear other people that are connecting with that Pure Michigan brand and the community of it. They have a feeling. They think about our beaches or, our quaint little towns. And that couldn't have happened without thinking about the brand and the emotion that you wanted to connect with that.
So let me make sure I'm understanding this right. If you're going to reinvent yourself or you're going to reinvent your company, and your name comes up, you actually want people to think differently about you as a result of the investment in the new branding that goes along with it, as Pure Michigan has done.
100%. And I think Dave had another great point when he said, consumers want enrichment. Ultimately, price matters, but they want to be able to walk away with value. And no matter what price tag you put on the experience, if people feel like they've gotten the value worth their money, you'll never hear complaints.
I think every day there's companies that are constantly asking the question, how do we engage with our customers? How do we give our customers an experience that no one else can give? How do we become that unique and create a competitive advantage through that connection, through that sense of community that you can only get by buying from us or experiencing us?
Right. And Dave said another good thing about getting back out into the industry. And some of the best bumps and motivation he gets is reconnecting with the people who are experiencing his brand. And he's right. So that would be my advice to anyone who's working on reinventing their brand or keeping a brand fresh, is make sure you're touching those consumers to see that everything is going well and that you're still hitting the mark.
Dave Lorenz, Pure Michigan, developing a really, really impressive case study for how to really shift a perception and create a whole new expectation for a deliverable.
Yes, and remember, if you're ready to make a change, make it a change that lasts. Make it Pure Reinvention.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Pure Reinvention. Keep the conversation going and get alerts when new podcasts are up by following us on Twitter at Pure Reinvention or sign up for our mailing list at purereinvention.com.